Hello, everyone. Today is October 6th, 2024. In fact, it's October 7th in Japan. My name is Lefteris Kafados. I'm in the Japan Lens, and I'm here today with retired Lieutenant General Yamaguchi Noboru. Uh, Lieutenant General Yamaguchi Noboru is with the Japan Ground Self-Defense Forces and currently a visiting professor at International University of Japan. We're very happy to have you with us today, General. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your kind invitation.
Of course. Today, we'll be speaking with the General about the defense situation surrounding Japan and in the East Asia region. Before we get into that discussion, I would like to briefly introduce the General. Lieutenant General Yamaguchi graduated from the National Defense Academy in 1974. He finished the Command and General Staff course of the JSDF Staff College in 1983. The general then went on to receive his master's degree from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University in 1988. And he was also a National Security Fellow at the John M. Olin Institute for Strategic Studies at Harvard University from 1991 until 1992. After serving as defense attaché at the Japanese Embassy in the United States from 1999 till 2001, he served as the Deputy Commandant of the GSDF Aviation School from 2001 until 2002. He was also Vice President of the National Institute for Defense Studies from 2005 until 2006. Since 2006, the general has held responsibilities including Commanding General of the GSDF, Research and Development Command, and until his retirement from active duty, which was in December of 2008. He also taught at the National Defense Academy of Japan from 2009 until 2015, and also at the International University of Japan from 2015 until 2024. But he is still a visiting professor at that institution. Notably, the general also, after the Great East Japan earthquake in March of 2011, he served at the Prime Minister's office as a special advisor to the cabinet for crisis management. That was until September. And then from 2017 until 2019, he was appointed by the foreign minister as a member of the group of eminent persons for substantive advancement of nuclear disarmament. The general's recent publications include Japan-India Security Cooperation on Pursuit of a Sound and Pragmatic Partnership, which was published by Oxford University Press in 2016. General, once again, thank you so much for coming to be with us here today.
My pleasure.
So, sir, with your permission, I'd like to just dive right in. As you, of course, are aware, the security environment surrounding Japan has become increasingly severe. Recently, the PLA Navy entered into Japanese territorial waters and planted a buoy. We've seen the repeated incursions by PLA aircraft into Japanese airspace. And then recently, there was the launching of a long-range missile into the Pacific Ocean. So, sir, in your estimation, in your opinion, are these business as usual actions by China, or are these recent actions a sign of escalating tensions?
Um, the, the, in my point of view, Chinese the activities have become much more intense than before, but in a different ways. Perhaps 5, 6, 7, almost 10 years ago, Chinese activity there was what used to be the kind of dangerous, not necessarily it's a sign of strength, but rather than the lack of maturity. It's kind of growing pain. Big and fancy toys and non-trained officers and enlisted people made their aircraft and their ships sometimes non-professional, less professional. than other Navy and the Air Forces. But recent case is different. The Chinese aircraft came very, very close to the territorial airspace, uh, right next to Kyushu Island. It's not a matter of one of the small islands in southwestern islands, but one of the main islands. And the pattern, the flight pattern there was very, very precise.
Mm.
And just before they entered, briefly entered Japanese the airspace, that was the around the small island, very small island, and then they went away. Before that, their flight pattern is very, very, like rectangular, precise
Mm.
rectangular to their own business. So my view is not necessarily it's every navy can do as far as it is out of a country's territorial airspace, uh, but very close. So
Mhm.
in that sense, I was rather impressed than sort of scared,
Mhm.
and they have become much more professional. That's a good news.
I see. Um, Nevertheless, so from what I understand what you said, the fact that they're increasing their technological capability and their professional ability, that is good news. But uh, nevertheless, is it concerning to you that these actions, such as the ones I mentioned, are
Yeah, of
taking?
course. Violation of territorial airspace is what against the international law. So Japanese government reacted very timely and correctly and in a way strong enough. And that is one of the things every country has to do. And I don't know whether the violation was intentional or just by mistake. The Russian aircraft in the past did several times.
Mm,
Most of them by mistake or by error of their navigation system,
mhm,
against which the late 1980s, we gave them we call signal shot. We shot the several rounds of 20 millimeter in front of the Russian aircraft.
so right.
That was, repeatedly they violated the territorial space of southwestern islands, several islands. So
Mhm,
the just after they decided to send the more powerful signal. That is the way professional militaries do. And you talked about the launch of long-range missile
yes, sir.
and the getting to territorial airspace or water space of other countries. That is actually scary for the people in Japan, much
Mhm,
more scary than before. But that is actually the definition business as usual.
mm,
As far as it remains in open public open sea.
mm,
Um, but still, getting very, very close to Kyushu Island, one of the main islands of Japan, is something unusual in comparison with the past. But but if you look at Russian flight over Japan, they are much more organized
mm,
or much more behaved, but still they they come very, very close to territorial airspace and go around the Japanese islands, uh, uh, in a sense, a professional way. In that sense, a side of the coin is China has become more professional. Another side of the coin, the people in Japan may have fear.
Hmm, I see. So, sir, that actually ties into my next question, which is with regard to a possible Taiwan contingency. Um, I don't, I may have sent you an article with an interview with Professor Minemura Kenji of the Canon Group. And one of the assertions that he makes is that um, he does not believe that the Chinese military is interested in having any kind of action against any real action against Japanese territory, because in order to take Taiwan, it will have to be kind of a gray zone tactic that requires keeping the US military out of the fight. And in Professor Minamura's view, the best way to keep America out of the fight is to not trigger the Article 5 obligation that the US and Japan have with the with regards to the defense treaty. So, he says it's not going to be a conventional, attack of Taiwan. There's going to be more of these gray zone tactics around Taiwan. Sir, what is your read on the situation? How do you view the situation with the Taiwan
Um,
contingency?
to be honest with you, I haven't read this article yet. But the argument of Professor Minemura sounds very much reasonable. As talking about Normandy style landing invasion, it is really difficult. It is maybe 100 times more difficult than Russian invasion of Ukraine, which
Certainly.
failed into stalemate. So the Normandy style sort of conventional invasion is is a nightmare for PLA too.
Mhm.
So that may not happen. But another point I found is um, keep US and Japan out during the crisis or military clash between Taiwan and the mainland. If that involves air combat or water the combat in water space,
Yes, sir.
I don't know whether it directly or automatically involves the United States based on the Article 5 of the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty, the obligation. But for Japan, no, Yonaguni Island is just 100 kilometers away from Taiwan. It is
Yes.
impossible for Japanese to see the aircraft, the Taiwanese and Chinese aircraft flying right maybe 50 kilometers over. It's a matter of a minute in flight of jet. It is impossible for Japan to see that kind of situation as totally outside of things. So particularly for Japan, it is impossible to avoid being involved. So once it happens, regardless, China or Taiwan have intention to come into our territory. First of all, our Just Up and Maritime Self-Defense Force has have to stand up against to protect our territory, and we need to prepare for possible case of a real crash against us. So we cannot be too optimistic about that. And Japanese may have may be in the more difficult position than American force. That may think twice to get involved in the contingency. We have no that sort of luxury.
I see. I see. Well, on that note, sir, I mean, do you believe uh, that the US military and the Japanese self-defense forces are taking effective actions to prevent conflict in the immediate region?
Actually, no, we have done a lot of things. The currently Japanese self-defense forces have been building up of the defense posture in southwestern islands.
Mhm.
That is not offensive capability, but totally defensive, the defensive and modest capabilities. But still, they may have the capability to deny the other side will to force us to follow their intention. So in a sense, we may have more denial capabilities than before. We used to have the substantial force on only on the main island of Okinawa, but now we have from Yonaguni, it's a watch station, but Ishigaki, the small but still anti-air and anti-ship defense capability with the security force for population protection. And the Yonaguni, Ishigaki, next Miyako Island, the same portion, and main island of Okinawa, and even new stations are built in the Amami Oshima, which is north of Okinawa. So every maybe 150 to 200 kilometers, where we have some sort of small footprint. And the U.S. Marine Corps has become much more serious about defense of this area. The U.S.
Mhm.
Marine's job is to respond any contingency in the world throughout the world. So even during the Cold War period, U.S. Marines stationed in Okinawa may not have thought that they are there to defend Japan or
Mhm.
defend the North Asia. But the U.S. Marines current shift to the capability to have ex expeditionary denial capabilities.
Mhm.
My definition. They call expeditionary advanced base operations
Mhm.
with a new type of the Marine regiment. That is not infantry, not artillery, not armor, but combine the anti-air and anti-ship capability as well as the logistic support for aviation unit when it deploys to the area where they can find the airfield facilities. That is very much similar to our idea. We have stations, static stations. The U.S.
Mhm.
Marines are thinking about um, expeditionary capability to set up that kind of denial capability in the coastal area, not necessarily only Japan, but what we call the island chain through Japan, through the Philippines to Southeast Asia.
Mhm.
So now the, we have become much, much more capable than before in terms of denying any. We cannot win, but we may not lose. The decisive lose, and this applies to the other side too. You know, for instance, China never loses. Once never loses, but never win.
Mhm.
The lose is decisively losing, but losing something very, very important. So it's going to be lose and lose game, and it is the assured lose and lose game.
Mhm.
So in a sense, what we used to call during the Cold War period, the deterrence by denial
Yes, sir.
is much more realistic than what that we used to talk about during the Cold War period.
I see. But the denial capability really is only as effective as the will to fight.
Yeah.
And I wonder if what is your opinion of the state of health of the U.S.-Japan alliance? And the reason I ask that, sir, is because, as you know, one of the candidates running for president right now is former President Donald Trump, and he's quite skeptical of alliances, even alliances with longstanding partners and friends like Japan. Many of his supporters are, say that, well, the alliances are really, they just benefit Wall Street elites. They're, what are these for? So do you believe that for Japanese citizens, they have a vested interest in the defense of Japan, but do you believe that the alliance and is such that ordinary American citizens can understand why it's important to defend Japan? If How would you argue against people who say, well, the U.S.-Japan alliance is uh, it's not beneficial to the interests of the United States? What would your argument be against that?
I'm not totally against anybody they can say anything, and different things. Everybody can believe in different things. But the first of all, alliance or treaty is a paper. Without sort of the very strong mind to implement the obligation, it's a paper.
Hmm.
I usually tell my students that as the treaty as a paper, as a Soviet-Japanese non-invasion treaty,
Mm.
violated the last of 1945, last of the first Second World War.
Yes, sir.
But alliance it has long been intact. In a sense, I'm very much assured. And having said that, there are 2 points that we need to think. One is it's not a choice of a unilateral choice of Japan. It must be alliance obligation must be related to common interest or common threat perception. And in that sense, the threat perception in Northeast Asia for Japanese and Americans have become much closer than before. In
Mm.
that sense, I am not so serious about that. If US has no interest in the securing U.S. interest in Northeast Asia, it's a matter of choice of the Americans.
Hmm.
For Japan, it's a death of a life question. So we are going to be very, very um, determined. But how much U.S. is interested in this is what it's a lot of it's a things from the heart, but rather from mindset calculation, uh,
Mm.
using this area or helping Japan to keep the U.S. national interest. That is a calculation. So that is one point. It's not a matter of unilateral choice of us or unilateral choice of the United States. Secondly, alliance, the reliability or credibility of alliance is not matter of what is written in the treaty,
Mm.
but rather what is not a matter of only defense relations, but rather overall relations between the two countries. If we really need a U.S. and U.S. people, American people think that they really need Japan for the future of the world, we have to be very serious about the alliance. And other thing is, another one is from heart.
Hmm.
During after three Great East Japan earthquake, I was in the cabinet as you introduced, and at that time, nobody asked about credibility of the alliance, even the Democratic Party of Japan. Without a treaty obligation, they sent 20 ships, more than 100 aircraft, 20,000, thousands of Marines, sailors, airmen, and soldiers. From a Japanese point of view, there is no doubt about when Japan is in a difficult position, friends in the United States will help us. And from the other side of the Japan, outside of Japan, that may have showed a very strong relation between the two countries. So that sorry,
That's that's
the
okay, sir.
technical.
Yeah, this
Okay.
looks like we got cut off for a moment, but please go ahead. You were saying about you were continuing
Yeah,
about the alliance. Yes, sir.
right. Alliance depends on the overall relation between the two countries or two nations or two peoples.
Hmm.
And that may reflect in the perception of other the possible opponents too.
I see.
If Japan and the US are in shape in dealing with each other, the other side may be deterred from doing anything against either Japan or the United States.
I see. So then, is it safe to conclude, sir, that you think the state of the U.S.-Japan alliance is quite healthy?
Um, you know, I am not a 100% satisfied because the keeping alliance needs that indefinite efforts for both sides,
Hmm.
U.S. and this side. So we have to work harder, even harder, in case in the situation where we feel the situation is good.
I see. So we can't just rest on our laurels. I see. Um, General, I wonder what you think about, as you know, this is an important election year for both your country and for the United States. Recently, Mr. Ishiba Shigeru was chosen as Prime Minister of Japan. Sir, in your estimation, what do you think, what types of changes do you think we might see in Japanese defense policy? Like what would be very different, perhaps between a Kishida administration and a Ishiba administration?
Um, Actually, the comparison is between Mr. Ishiba and Mr. Kishida um, may not cover everything. We may have to at least think about Mr. Abe. Mr. Kishida, the Prime Minister Kishida did what Abe laid out, or Abe really wanted to do. And it was very ambitious plan. And I had the conversation with a close friend of Mr. Aso, and after Kishida came and Kishida did the fantastic job in the defense policy, and his Mr. Aso, according to him, said to him that if the Aso himself or Abe are in power, this could not have been made because they have really conservative or to some extent hawkish reputation. In comparison with Kishida, Kishida has more liberal reputation, and his constituency is Hiroshima. He has very strong, his constituency has very strong feeling against the nuclear weapons because of Hiroshima. and people in Hiroshima, the liberal and the Kishida, the has had a liberal sort of reputation. So, like the Nixon was able to do real business with Chinese. Because he was a realist and conservative, the Americans may not have any doubt about the Nixon to go too far in the relation with China. Something like that happened when Kishida was there. Then the question is, my worry is Mr. Abe and Mr. Ishiba had different opinions when Japan made a sort of change in the security legislation, 2015, I remember.
Yes, sir.
At that time, I remember that Mr. Ishiba insisted that we need to have, fundamental change with the what national security basic law or something, and based on that overall law, the self-defense forces law and the other laws that they should be placed. But the Abe, Prime Minister Abe, the Abe administration went to a little bit more pragmatic approach. So the adding things to the existing laws and while making some not overall cover, but the fundamental idea was written in one law.
Mm,
So that was not satisfactory for Prime Minister Ishiba. Ishiba
mm,
wanted a much more fundamental change. Abe, even though he was very much conservative, I
mm-hmm.
have known both Mr. Ishiba and Abe since they were young politicians, and they were security experts in the LDP in a wider sense. But Mr. Ishiba and Mr. Abe, they have different kind of positions. And then I am wondering if Prime Minister Ishiba think that something is wrong. We need to change everything that from scratch.
I
I
see.
don't think that will happen, but um, it is natural for Mr. Prime Minister Ishiba to have sense to make change.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, we may have to keep watching what kind of changes he want. I'd rather see more economy and after disaster the recovery kind of. He has been vocal on that position too.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, the Japanese as a nation cannot be united.
I see.
So
Yes,
I don't want to see the Ishiba administration be in too much hurry.
I see. I see. So do you think that Prime Minister Ishiba will be able to have a good relationship with the next U.S. president? As you know, next month, in about 4 weeks from now, the United States will be holding a general election to choose president. It is likely to be either Democratic candidate Kamala Harris or Republican candidate Donald Trump. Do you think that Prime Minister Ishiba will be able to have a good relationship with either one of those two candidates, regardless of who wins? Or who do you think would be better for the US, from the Japanese defense standpoint? Who do you think, who would you rather see become president?
It's a really good question. Um, two elections, Japanese diet resolution after the following the election.
Yes, sir.
I don't know how it turns out, and I don't know how U.S. election turns out. Those two are very much decisive, and even only American presidential election scared me enough. But now I'm so scared about by two elections. But anyway, both leaders, regardless who leads in the United States and how strong Nishiba administration is, we need to have better relation. Um, and I have no sort of idea about telling the future. I have never I have never failed to predict the future of the international relations because I have never predicted. Okay. But respond to the change it has always been my responsibility in the government and even after retirement. So um, it's not a time to think too seriously. Thinking too seriously beforehand may not help us. If thinking different scenarios may help us to find a better way in a sort of situation where nobody thought about.
Mhm.
But honestly speaking, I have no idea. But the mission is very simple for Japan. We need to keep the alliance intact and to keep the good relations with the United States. And the Prime Minister the Ishiba, um, Prime Minister Abe, he was in a position. He had full sort of support from bureaucratic organizations.
Mhm.
He used to listen to those bureaucratic positions, many different ministries, financial, defense, the foreign ministry, and other ministries. And Prime Minister Ishiba has not have that kind of experience. When he was a defense minister, he was very strong and the defense minister with very good leadership.
Mhm.
But he has his own ideas about the
Mhm.
alliance. What um, since I was wearing green uniform, whenever I saw him, he teased me. Your army is your army has too many soldiers. Why don't you to let the other service use spend more money than spending wasting money for number of soldiers. And that is his idea,
I
but
see.
different from my idea.
So, sir, on that point, did he believe that um, it was necessary to increase the strength of the maritime forces or the air forces, air self-defense forces? What did he mean specifically by too many in the ground self-defense
Yeah,
force?
the story is when he was a defense minister, and we had a sort of very much a very strict limitation on the budget. But we have doubled, and Prime Minister Kishida has doubled the budget. So we don't have to do too much tough battle between services. And we are now, in that sense, much better position than before. What we call the beyond the jointness. Jointness means connecting the different services
Hmm.
in Navy, Air Force, Marines. Now we everybody in the defense ministry is talking about cross-domain, multi-domain, cross-domain, including cyber and airspace and electromagnetic space domains.
Yes, sir.
And that involves merger of services,
Mm,
regardless, which service that one asset belongs to. They serve in space, they serve in the surface,
mm.
and the shooters or sensors or transmitters, regardless who owns, that should be used by everybody. That is the kind of idea of cross-domain operations. So in a sense, the service library may not be too much serious than before. By the way, my son is a submariner.
Is that right?
We have never agreed.
See? Um, Prime Minister Ishiba is interested in acquiring nuclear submarines for the maritime self-defense forces because currently Japan only has the diesel run submarines. And some of his ideas, have come across as controversial. For example, the nuclear submarine issue, or perhaps he's talked about nuclear sharing, where perhaps U.S. nuclear assets could be deployed on Japanese soil. He's also talked about the possibility of opening a self-defense force on American soil. So, in that sense, sir, do you think Prime Minister Ishiba is more hawkish than the late Prime Minister Abe, or what do you think about Prime Minister Ishiba's defense policies, his ideas?
Um, you know, Let me talk about nuclear submarine or nuclear assets,
Yes,
not weapons. But the because of unfortunate history, not necessarily only because of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but other events. Some Japanese suffered from radiation in the Bikini or other places because of test.
yes, sir.
And uh, bombs um, may have caused a lot of mental sort of the um, aspect of Japanese. And also the early, I don't remember when exactly when, but Japan tried to have operational nuclear powered vessels. It's a merchant marine vessel, but it failed because of leakage of radiation, and then it was kind of frozen, and that caused again even nuclear power plant now, power plants in Japan after the stopping operation after 3/11 have difficulty to restart.
Yes,
So
sir.
it's a deep from deep in the heart issue for Japan. So um, it's not it's not simply a logical issue. And another nuclear deterrence issue, nuclear sharing. My question is whether all the Japanese have guts to share trigger or nuclear responsibility in the shooting nuclear weapons. I know if I were asked to do, I have guts,
Hmm.
but I am sure and I am sure that Mr. Ishiba has got
Hmm.
uh, to do so. But um, I don't know how many percent of the Japanese may have the guts to see the um, real picture of nuclear deterrence, shooting or being shot. And if the deterrence fails, it happens. And for that, deterrence it exists. So it may we may have to be much more mature in that sense. Now, and also including Mr. Ishiba and Mr. Mr. Abe,
Hmm.
here is the, they have they made some differences that advance in that sense. But I feel like we have still long way to go.
Mm, I see. I see. Um, so are you aware that at the recent 2+2 in the past summer, there was Secretary Blinken and Secretary Austin met with their Japanese counterparts, respectively, Minister Kamikawa and Minister Kihara. Of course, now those ministers have changed with the Ishiba administration. But at the time, they announced a new JJOC, the Joint Command, a more robust command structure using both the U.S. military and the self-defense forces. Um, do you think that those types of new initiatives might help with what you just described, this kind of maybe hesitation or, as you said, lack of guts or lack of determination to use such weapons?
Um, if we talk about the nuclear weapons in a broader picture, it is easier to understand. And also the joint command or the bilateral command structure more tight and more connected may help us to increase the capability.
Hmm.
The joint the command is a matter of brain and nerves,
Mm.
and while those nerves yeah, has to connect eyes and ears with fists, and in that sense, we have hardware. But if we have much better brain and nerves, those hardware may serve better. If we talk about this in a bilateral picture, that applies to much more seriously. U.S. has assets. U.S.
Hmm.
has eyes and ears and head, brain and fists and nerves, and Japan has that one. In Japan side has been really working hard to improve that the joint command capabilities. It is a good chance for the two militaries to connect two militaries like this,
Hmm.
not not like this.
Sure, I see. And so as a related question, there's the Five Eyes initiative where there's intelligence sharing between the United States and Canada and the UK and other partners. And Japan has presented the proposal of becoming the sixth eye for intelligence. Do you think that Japan is ready to be the sixth eye in the Five Eyes intelligence agreement?
Honest answer is I don't know. I don't know. It has always been the sort of dream for the intelligence and military people to share intelligence with those five. Five of the best, perhaps tens in the world.
Hmm.
That may help us a lot. The then question is Japan ready for that, particularly in the sense of the information security? If we have the really good security, the policy and security systems,
Mm.
that's one thing, and that is one of the things that we have made progress. But I I do not know how long we have to go still. Uh, the another one is what the people may talk about more if they trust us.
Mm.
If trust us and if Japan is worth sharing information for those files.
Hmm.
Uh, if Japan's role in the security and intelligence is important for the five, it may have we may have a better chance. And in that sense, importance of this area of the world is becoming much more serious about than before. In that sense, strategic interest of those five has become higher than before. But my question is it high enough to get those five involved in the sharing information with Japan?
I see. I see. So, sir, this is kind of a kind of wrap up final question, I guess. In light of the security situation, in light of the military and diplomatic developments that we're seeing in East Asia, um, what I know you said that you've never failed at being at predicting because you never predict, but um, what should people who are interested in the defense of Japan look for as we transition from 2024 to 2025? What will be the things that you will be looking for in trying to see how the defense situation in the region is developing?
To me, that because of two elections, perhaps I'm too much worried about the future, or I don't know what happens. But the bottom line is, um, in Ishiba administration has been working really hard in the last couple of weeks. But now we don't know yet how strong, domestically strong, the Ishiba administration will be.
Hmm.
That depends on the election, the coming election. I'm an optimistic. I'm an optimist by training because I fly the helicopter, single engine helicopter. Never, never thought that my helicopter has engine failure. So I'm basically optimistic, but in this case, I have a couple of good reasons to think about the future in the less optimistic scenario too. Um, the weak, strong the administration of Japan may cause a united Japan.
Hmm.
If Japan is divided, Japan's determination will become weaker.
Hmm.
U.S. case, to what extent either candidate can do or reunite the people in the United States
Hmm.
is going to be one of the keys for not only bilateral or not only the domestic U.S. question, but the question for the world as a whole.
I
So
see.
that sort of magnitude. But anyway, we need to live in the real world, and hopefully at least policy making level or the working level, the two countries, the U.S. and Japan, are better than ever. So that's the good news for me.
Well, that is an optimistic note, sir, and thank you very much for sharing that with us and for sharing all of your valuable opinions. We're so happy to have your wisdom and your experience and your insights on these issues. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you.